Hey, it's Danny here. I made this video to show off the migration tools that the community has developed to move you from Islandora with Drupal 7 and Fedora 3 into Islandora with Drupal 8 and Fedora 5. I've got my empty Drupal 8 here and its corresponding Fedora 5 here. Both of these are part of a fresh instance of CLAW Playbook that I just spun up. And I've got my Islandora 7.x environment here, which I spun up using Islandora Vagrant. I've gone ahead and ingested some sample content into the basic image collection here. I've got 5 images of different neon signs that I downloaded from Pexels, which is a great website if you're looking for some free photography to use for a sample or a demo. And I've gone ahead and filled out their metadata pretty well too. Here, if we check out free smells, we can look at its mods. The metadata is pretty well filled out here. You can see I've got a collaborator and a publisher and some publication information, some basic description, and then a whole bunch of subjects, especially the hierarchical geographic information here. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the Migrate 7x CLAW tool to pull all of this stuff over everything in this basic image collection. All their data streams are going to come over. The collection hierarchy is going to be preserved. And all of those collaborators and publishers and subjects and geographics that we saw, all of those are going to get extracted out and made into their own entities in Drupal 8. Now, by default, it's configured to work with a vanilla 7x instance like I've got here. So I can just run this and we'll get some good results. When you point it at your own 7x, you'll have to tailor it to your metadata profile. Essentially, the more you've modified your XML forms and Solr indexing, then the more you have to modify some config in Drupal 8. We can't do everything for you here, but we can give you a really, really good starting point to put in your own customizations, which for the most part boils down to really putting Solr fields and XPaths and some YAML and then re-importing it. It's really not that bad. But Drupal's migrate API is a bit obscure and it can be really overwhelming to the uninitiated. So if I'm talking about something and it's all just coming at you like way too fast, I highly suggest you check out the Migrate Islandora CSV tutorial that I've made, which is an excellent primer for the Migrate API. And it's using the same images and everything we're doing here. It's just using a CSV as a starting point instead of Fedora 3. Anyway, let's walk through the steps of making some customizations here. So I've already downloaded Migrate 7x CLAW using Composer, and I enabled the feature that comes with the module. The feature, which contains the configuration that really describes your particular migration, depends on the code in the module. So enabling the feature enables them both. And it's this configuration that you need to update with your particulars here. I'm going to update the Solr and Fedora URLs. So let me just pop open a console here and I'll show you what we're looking for. I'm going to SSH in. I'm just going to work my way here into the directory with the YAML files. And I'm going to open one up. We're going to do the one for basically the Fedora objects. It's pretty easy to spot the URLs here that we need to change. You can see in the source section, we've got Solr base URL and Fedora base URL just underneath it. I don't actually need to change the 10.0.2.2. That works for me. That's a special IP address when you're working with virtualized environments. So this is actually how the 7x and the Vagrant are going to talk to each other. It's using that IP address. But Islandora Vagrant and CLAW Playbook expose the same ports for the same services like Tomcat and stuff. So you're going to get clashes. So what I had to do was go ahead and expose all of the ports in 7x. I just prefixed a 1 in front of them. So instead of 8080, like it's 18080. I have to go do this for most of the file. So instead of making you watch me do that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go and find and replace them using set. Normally, I would suggest just using the find and replace functions in your editor and copying the files over, but just for the sake of brevity here. Now we've made the changes in the files, but Drupal doesn't actually know that we've made any of these changes. We have to re-import this configuration. So I'm going to show you how to do that using a feature. Um, you can do it using drush, which I prefer to do, but you can also do it through the UI, and I just like to show that off first here. For the rest of the video, I'll just do it on the command line. But it is nice to show off how you can do this using the user interface. So if you go to configuration, down here there's features. And so we're in this Islandora bundle. We've got the Migrate 7x CLAW feature. You can see here we've got this change link. You can click on that. And here you'll actually get a, like diff of what you've done, how what you've got on the site differs from what's on the files. And so I want to import these. You can selectively do it. I'm going to click up here. We're going to select all. We're just going to hit import changes. Okay. Another thing I need to do real quick before we kick off these migrations is go ahead and disable derivative generation. So that's all handled with context. So if we go to admin structure context, here you can see the context UI. For those of you who don't know, this is really like the main control panel for your repository. This handles everything from indexing in Fedora and the triple store to generating derivatives to swapping viewers to placing blocks, changing themes. I mean, you can do a lot with this. Um, the derivatives are labeled kind of, you can see image, video here. We're just going to go ahead and disable these contexts, which is going to disable their logic, which means we're not going to fire off events as we're ingesting all of these objects because they already have derivatives. And so we just don't want to, kick off any unnecessary or wasteful operations while we're doing this. And be sure you got to hit save context here. Okay. So now we can go ahead and try to run a migration. Again, this is something that I usually do using drush and the command line, but you can do it through the UI. So I'll show off doing it through the UI first, but then I'm going to hop back into the console for the rest of this. So go ahead, you go to structure and migrations. We've got a migration group here called Islandora objects. You can see it's got this machine name Islandora 7.x. That's the one we want. Click list migrations. Okay, so if you've done everything correctly up to this point, you should be seeing what I'm seeing here. If you've white screened, it means you misconfigured something. If you go and check the logs, you can click on reports and have it show you recent log messages. It'll tell you what it's complaining about. Chances are it's just that it can't resolve whatever IP you put in. Just double check and make sure you put in, the right IP address. So these migrations need to be run in a certain order. As you can imagine, if we've got all of these entities referencing each other, then we need to make sure that as we create those references that, both sides of the relationship are there and valid, right? And the easiest way to do this is that you can just run it as a group. It'll resolve all of the dependencies between the things and it'll run everything in the correct order. You can only do that through the command line though. You can't do that through the user interface. So what I'm going to do is I already know what the first one needs to be, so I'm going to go ahead and run that. It's this one here with the tags. This is not going to hurt anything, and we're just going to go ahead and do this one first through the UI. So if we click on its execute button, we're not actually going to execute it. It's going to take us to the execute page. And this is basically an HTML wrapper around, like the drush tool to run migrations. You've got a drop-down box here with your different options of what you want to do. You can import, which just basically runs the migration. You can roll it back if you got some things, but they're not what you're looking for. This will go ahead and delete everything and just get rid of it. And sometimes when they run, if things go wrong, they can get kind of stuck in bad states. So occasionally you'll have to go and reset them if something goes foul. The only other thing that's really useful here is this update box, which if you check it, it's just going to clobber whatever it already migrated with whatever's in the source again. So if you actually go change the source, you can do this to kind of like keep things in sync. So we're just going to go ahead and run this now, hit execute. It's just slurping in some taxonomy terms from a CSV, so it's pretty quick. gives you a little report, and that's it. So let's head to the command line and actually run everything now. I'm going to have to get the proper incantation here. Um, you have to provide the URL to your site. So we're going to put localhost 8000. You also have to give it a user ID of a user with right permissions. So we're just going to give it user ID 1. We're going to do everything as admin. -y just says say yes to everything. We're going to migrate import the group, and it's Islandora 7.x. So we're going to kick this off. And it goes pretty quick here. So what it does is you have a Solr query that's in the configuration. That Solr query is used to basically get a list of PIDs. That's the list of things that it's going to migrate. And then for each of those PIDs that it gets, it's then going to go and it's going to fetch either its Solr doc, its voxel representation, or a particular data stream. And then it's going to extract information from that and then use that to create entities. It's also going to pull all of the data streams over like as is, as files, and like untouched, and put those in there too. Okay, so it's done. Let's see what we've got. Okay, so we can see everything here. We've got all of the objects. We also have the collection. If we click on the collection, we can see that the hierarchy is preserved. It contains the members here. You can see it in its members list. And if we go ahead and we click on one of these, we can see that we've got all of this metadata that we extracted from it. If we go to its media tab, you can see that we've got all the data streams here. And we can go check out one of these data streams here. These are actually living in your Fedora 5. So if we click here, you can see the URL that we get here is fly system Fedora masters, and then it keeps this audit trail here. But here you can see all the XML on it. And basically, if you look at these file names here, you can see the DSID is embedded in them. And we don't really use DSIDs anymore. We use taxonomy terms that we kind of have. We just basically slap the DSID on as tags. And they're more or less one-to-one here, but they are subtly different. So OBJ is called an original file now. Things that you see that would be like medium size or the preview data stream or something like that, that would be a service file. TN becomes thumbnail image, and the rest of them all just kind of have names for what type they're supposed to be. You know, mods file for mods. If we go back and look at the metadata for the object here, let's just kind of work our way back. You can see that we've extracted all these subjects, all of the geographic information there. Everything is about neon signs. These are all taxonomy terms, so you kind of get the natural grouping capabilities of taxonomy terms when you use them. For example, here, if we click on neon signs, I've tagged all of these as having the neon sign subject. So here you can run it like that, basically like a feed. But then we've also got, here a photographer and a publisher, and these are also taxonomy terms. So we can also just as easily find all of the pictures published by Pexels, which is all of them, because that's where I got them from. So you can see we can do that here as well, which is pretty cool. Now, the photographer here, this taxonomy term, actually has quite a bit to it. It's not just a name. You can hear set if you actually have an authority source for it. You can add that here. Plus, you can give all the different, name bits. All I had available to me from Pexels was his name, so that's what I put in here. But there's a lot you can do. It's not just a simple label that you're just slapping on things. Sometimes our taxonomy terms can be complex, pieces of information themselves. And so everything's pretty well there. We got all the data streams over, we got all the metadata over, we got the metadata kind of split up into nice discrete units that all reference each other now. I guess I can show here they all everything is also all in Fedora. If we refresh this page, we'll see quite a bit more information. And we can see some of the data streams here. Like here's a DC data stream. So here's some DC here. But what I didn't tell you is that I actually put a whole lot more stuff in the Islandora 7.x. So if we get out of the basic image collection here and we go snooping around, I've got a very annoying audio clip of a guy going, "Hey!" I don't know if you can hear that or not, but it's super annoying. Um, I've also got a video collection entry here. Good old Big Buck Bunny. As always, right? The standard for testing video. And I've also got a PDF. Um, there we go. It is the Drupal 8 cheat sheet for working with configuration. So if I go and change that Solr query that before was only pointed um, at the basic image collection, all of its members, if I change that to say everything, then we're going to get all of this. In fact, we're going to get all of the collections too, even the ones I didn't put any data into. Um, so let's go give that a shot. So in these migrations here, I'm going to go open up the same migration we had before. We can see we've got in the source, we actually have this queue parameter here. So we can change this. And if we just changed it from all that to star colon star, we'll just go ahead and get everything. So again, I'm not just going to change it for all these files. I'm just going to use find and replace on the command line. Um, I imagine most of you aren't going to want to use sed, so I do encourage just using regular find and replace, but let's just, for the purposes of demonstration, rock that. And okay, so if we go and re-import the feature, then this should all get absorbed by Drupal. So let's just go ahead and do that. It's FIM is short for features import, and it is the Islandora Migrate 7x CLAW feature. A little long in the tooth, but it works. Okay, so you can see we've got those changed. And so if we run it again, we should get everything. So I'm just going to go ahead and there, it's in my history. I'm not going to run update. I'm just going to get the new stuff. I'm not going to touch the things we've already migrated. Okay, it did its thing. So let's check out the results. If we go to content here, we can see a list of pretty much all content. And lo and behold, first hit here is the root collection. So you can see it's got all of the other collections in it now, and you can actually page through this list. Um, and if we go into one here in our audio collection, you can see we've got this audio object migrated over. Viewer is different. It's just the plain old HTML5 audio viewer, but it still works. And if we go back, we can see all of the other objects that got brought over here. Here's the PDF. And we can see the video. And I forgot to mention that we actually also had a TIFF in the 7x. We click on that, we can see it here. And give it a sec. Okay, took it a sec, but there it goes. As you can see, we can zoom in and out on our TIFF here using OpenSeaDragon. So the tool really can't handle most of the basic object types here that are just kind of like single object type things. It can handle. And you can totally edit and customize these YAML files to pull out whatever you need from your own custom metadata. So I haven't actually given you an example of that yet. Everything I've done has just been kind of all the defaults, which are all set to work with the vanilla 7x instance, which is like very locked down and standard, quote unquote. I know what I'm programming against here. But you're going to have to go put in your changes, so let me give you an example of doing that. So if we go back to our 7x instance here, let's go back to that basic image collection and those sample images I ingested with their metadata. We can go pick out a piece that's in 7x that did not get migrated over. So if we go check out this mods form here, click edit, and here we go. So I happen to know that this physical description does not get pulled over. The extent part does, but not the form. So this non-projected graphic that we see here in this dropdown, we need to set up CLAW so that it's ready to receive this, and then we need to go edit the configuration YAML to tell it to go extract it from Solar. So first, let's go make the field in Drupal 8. So let's go edit our repository item. So if we go to structure, content types, you see this repository item. This is what we get from Islandora demo. I'm going to go manage its fields. I'm going to say add field. And I'm going to make this a just like plain text. And I'm going to call it physical form. So it gets this machine name field physical form. Remember that. We're going to want to know that. And max length of 255. That's all standard. We're just going to say just one because you can only select one thing from a drop-down box. Um, so if we go back here, we can see in its fields list, you now have this physical form. Okay, so here's the text field that's going to hold the value. We just made that through the UI. All right, and so we need to go edit the YAML to tell it to extract that physical form. But first, before we do that, we need to know what the name of it is in Solar. So I need to know the Solar field to grab it with. So I'm going to go check out our Solar in 7x. So I got to go to collection one here and then query, and I just know that Islandora 6 is one of the objects. So I'm going to search for that PID, and we're just going to look at its Solar doc here in JSON. And I'm going to give it, I'm going to control F here, form. Not quite what I want. How about physical? Here we go, physical description form. Okay, all right. So I can use this solar field and go ahead and use that to put this into CLAW. So let's give that a shot. So if we go, I'm going to edit that same file here. This is the Islandora objects one. This is the one that edits the nodes. This is the one that pulls out most of the metadata. If we go down within the source section, there's this chunk called fields. Here's where we just list out all of the uh, different solar fields that we want to pull out. So we put the solar field in as the selector, and then we give it a name. So I'm going to come kind of all the way down to the bottom of this. And I'm just going to copy and paste this bit, and we're gonna reuse it. So I'm going to call this physical form, give it a label, physical form, and then paste in the physical description uh, form solar field right there. So that tells Migrate how to extract it. Look for that solar field. Now we need to tell Migrate where to put it. So if we go down here to the process section, you can see where we've got basically we just list the fields and then what value we want, and these values here, these are the names of the things in the above section with the solar fields. So if we want to do that, we can actually I'll just go ahead and stick it in right here next to extent. Why not? Field physical form. I'm just remembering that from earlier. Okay, and so that's it. So we're going to re-import this feature and rerun the migration, and then we should have physical form here. And then I'm going to rerun the migration. And I got to be sure to add the update. Actually, you know what I'm going to do is I'm not going to run it as a group. I'm just going to go ahead and run just the Islandora object one. So this one should go pretty quick. It's just going to hit solar and update and come back. Oop. Ah, it's because it's Islandora objects. Excuse me. Okay, and so if we go check these out in CLAW, you see here now they all have this physical form. And so if I want to go and change even where that is, I can go use Drupal to do that. So we can go back to the content types here. And I can go say manage display. So physical forms at the bottom, but if I want to like move it next to extent, like it is in 7x, I can do that and hit save. I can also manage the form display here. So again, physical form now it's stuck at the bottom here. Let me show you that. So if we go to 1, you can see it's out of place. I'll show you how to change a form here real quick too. So if we go edit this, you can see all the way down to the bottom, this physical form is kind of sticking out. It's not grouped in with the rest of them. So if we want to go do that, here. Content types, repository item, manage form display. I'm just going to take this physical form and I'm going to nest it up against extent like it is in 7x. So let's just get that in there, right there. Save this. Okay, so let's go back. You can see physical form is up next to extent here. And then if we go edit this, we can also see that it's up here in the form now. So yeah, so it's a pretty good example of using the tool and how to make some customizations to it, and then some of the awesome things that you can use with Drupal 8. I hope you liked this video. I hope you found it informative. If you find yourself with lots of questions about the Migrate API, which I'm sure you do, please check out the Migrate Islandora CSV tutorial. Here's a link for it. Check it out. Pretty easy and straightforward to sit down and follow through on your own. But if that's not working for you and you still have more questions, then don't be afraid to email us at islandora@googlegroups.com, or you can hop into IRC, go to chat.freenode.net and go to #Islandora and drop us a line. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.